You're watching the ANEC Sports Podcast on YouTube. The show starts right now.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 21 of the NEC Sports Podcast. My name is Sam Fred. I'm the founder and editor at Around the Northeast Corner, covering 30 schools across Northeast Indiana and parts of Elkhart County. That includes the ACAC, the NECC, and the Northeast 8. And so we have concluded the conference tournaments for the NECC and the ACAC basketball tournaments. This also concludes our girls wrestling season for 2024-25 as girls wrestling completed their state finals competitions down in Indianapolis in the Indiana State Fairgrounds, what was formerly known as the Indiana Farmers Coliseum. I think it's called the Koteva Coliseum, whatever that name is called now. No matter what, it's the same place. But either way, we had multiple wrestlers competing in the state finals, whether it's East Noble, Garrett's, Lakeland, Prairie Heights had a wrestler. Columbia City had a couple of wrestlers. New Haven had several wrestlers competing in the state finals. Jay County had several competing in the state finals. All in all, and then Huntington North also had a wrestler competing in the state finals. It was a tremendous experience for the very first girls wrestling state finals, and I thought the IHSAA did a tremendous job of putting in a nice product for the state finals competition and allowing these wrestlers to get their moments. And as we'll talk about shortly on the show, we had multiple state champions coming from this area in girls wrestling, two of which came from Garrett's. We had one from New Haven and then one from Jay County. And so as girls wrestling comes to an end, let's also please keep in mind that this is a monumental moment in the history of female sports and for the sport of wrestling as a whole. Now, unfortunately, I will not be able to speak with anybody regarding wrestling this week due to our busy schedule with our basketball coverage, particularly with the ACAC and the NECC. But hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I will start bringing in some wrestling content and wrestling interviews to reflect on this girls wrestling season that just concluded here at ANEC Sports. So let's get into the talk around the corner. And I think to begin this section of the talk around the corner, let's take a look at the girls wrestling state finals that took place on Friday. And so we begin, let's go ahead and zoom this up just a little bit here. So we begin by just scrolling down here. By the way, congratulations to Caitlin Rouse of Jay County. She did make it to the quarterfinals before falling by fall to the Michaels girl of Portage, who would go on to finish second. Rouse, let's see here. I just want to make sure I understand it correctly here. So Rouse obviously had a very good showing in that quarterfinal as she would go on to finish in fourth place. Let's see here. You look at, let's see, 105, no, 110. Okay. Let's see, 115. All right, so 115, you had Isabella Ocampo, and obviously with Isabella Ocampo, she came into the state finals. And let's see, where's her record? 36-0. Essentially dominated the whole way through. Every single round she won by fall and dominated all the way to winning the state championship at the 115 weight class. And so she finishes her sophomore campaign undefeated on the season. Congratulations to Isabella Campo of the New Haven Bulldogs. It's a tremendous year for her. Let's see here, looking through other sections here. You had Brenna Rubel of Jay County, just a freshman, by the way. Nice performance from her. She went on to place 8th in that weight class. Let's see, taking a look at not 125, 130. Nevaeh Wilson of Garrett was another that won a state championship, and she came into the state finals 34-1. Again, just like for the most part with Isabella, she did win her first 2 rounds by fall in this, and then she won the semifinal matchup by a major decision, 12-0, before winning by fall again in the championship round. And she would go on to win her first state championship. Congratulations to the junior Nevaeh Wilson on that state championship. And then Lanessa Ocampo placed 5th in that same weight class, 130. Bright future for her. Again, another Ocampo in that talented family of wrestlers. Let's see. I want to make sure I don't forget anybody. You had Lena Lingo, the senior of Jay County, made it to the quarterfinals. Unfortunately, she lost there, but would go on to place 8th in that weight class. Obviously, Natalie Spidell of East Snowball came up just short. Same for Christian Lewis of Prairie Heights. Literally to the last second, Christian Lewis was right there, tied in her bout, and unfortunately just came up just short in the end for Christian Lewis of Prairie Heights. Aubrey Troutner of Huntington North finished 3rd in the 140. The talented sophomore out of Huntington North. She came into this state finals undefeated. And again, only 1 loss in that sophomore year. Tremendous work for her. Let's see, looking at the 145. Just want to make sure I don't forget anything here. Okay, no, that's about right. 155, we had Reagan Trineri, or for a lot of people, they call him Turtle. Turtle also came in with a very strong showing in the state finals. 26-2, the sophomore from Garrett's. And other than that second round matchup there, the quarterfinals, she won every other by either fall or technical fall. And Trineri becomes the second Garrett Railroader to win a state championship in this state finals. And so both Turtle and Nevaeh Wilson winning state championships, that allowed Garrett to finish 5th as a team in the team scoring, which is impressive for a team that only had 2 wrestlers advancing to the state finals. That is impressive stuff right there. You also had Olivia Bodie placing 7th in this weight class, the 155. Again, another Bulldog representing very well in the state finals. And obviously, the really talented Mallory Winter, undefeated going into the state finals in the 170. And Cruz, not necessarily Cruz, but she certainly dominated her way to winning her 4th state championship. Obviously, this one's more significant because this is the first under the IHSA sponsorship of the sports. So obviously, this is more meaningful for her because now you're one of the pioneers of girls wrestling. And Mallory Winter, in her final year of high school wrestling, she wins a state championship for the 4th time in a row, but this time under the IHSA banner. Very, very, very monumental moment for the Jay County program as a whole. And then Jacinda Brown of Fairfield placed 8th in that bracket. And you look at, let's see here, the 190 class, Michaela Clifford, 4 years. She placed all 4 years as a wrestler, although she would have loved to place higher than 7th place. No matter, Michaela Clifford is still a part of history as she placed all 4 years at Columbia City. Again, pioneer of Columbia City girls wrestling as the school of wrestling in Columbia City. They were able to win the first NEA championship in girls wrestling. So big congrats to her on a tremendous career, and I'm sure there's a bright future ahead for her down the road, whatever that path takes her. And that's pretty much all I have for girls wrestling. But one thing's for sure is the sport of wrestling has grown so much in the past 3 or 4 years. And now with girls wrestling being sanctioned for the first time, I know I spoke to Jimmy Lynn about this last week. I spoke briefly with Coach Krause about this. Girls wrestling has grown so much now that it's being sanctioned by the IHSAA. And again, we're in a situation now where 50 years from now, we're going to be looking back at this year and saying, what a tremendous moment it was for the sport of girls wrestling to get that stage, to get that moment for these wrestlers to finally get their names written in the history of this association and be able to become an IHSA state champion, an IHSA state placer, an IHSAA state qualifier. Those are things that just matter so much in regard compared to what you've seen in the past. To be able to do it on that stage, in front of that environment, in front of a professional arena, in that atmosphere, really just tells you just how much the sport has grown and how much it's going to grow in the future. Now let's shift over to basketball news and coverage. And we first want to discuss girls basketball, but we will discuss the ACAC and NECC last. So let's take a look at the Hoosier Plains Conference. In case you're wondering if I missed anything about Bethany Christian yet, well, guess what? A lot of the things we talked about Bethany up to this point remains the same. They still have not won a game since the season opener. They've lost 15 straight. The good news for Bethany is they are starting to get healthy. Carly Kroom came back recently. And it might have been the last game that they played against Bremen. She had maybe 11 points in that contest, but still lost by 45 points to a very good Bremen team. They do have a 3-game road trip coming up, beginning on the 21st at Concord, then the 23rd at South Bend Career Academy, followed by the 25th at Hamilton. So there will be some opportunities for Bethany to get some wins entering the state tournament, as it's been a tough year for the Bethany Christian Bruins. Young team, a lot of young players on this team. Injuries certainly have not helped any of this whatsoever, but now there's an opportunity for Bethany to get some confidence building up to the direction of this team entering not only the playoffs, but also for next season. Taking a look at Hamilton real quick, 2-11 so far this season, still winless in conference play. They're going to have a couple of games this week on Friday and Saturday. They'll be hosting the Lakeland Lakers, a former conference rival, and then they'll be hosting Bethany Christian on the 25th. So a battle between the two bottom-tier teams in the conference. They'll have an opportunity to get that first conference win of the season, and then they'll wrap up the regular season on the 28th against Clinton Christian. And yes, Hamilton does not play a very lengthy schedule here, so it's going to be a pretty short schedule entering the sectional tournament for the Hamilton Marines. We take a look at the Three Rivers Conference as we are getting close to the end of the Three Rivers Conference season for girls basketball. Whitko remains in first place entering this week, 7-0 conference play, 13-3 overall. They, again, as I mentioned earlier, they've won 5 in a row, and they continue their streak this past week with wins over Lakewood Park and Southwood, 58-44, 52-33 on the road. What's more impressive about these wins lately is they're not scoring as many points as they were earlier in the season, but they're giving up far fewer than 50 points in their last 3 games. So Whitko's starting to play some pretty good defense as of late against teams in 2A and 1A, which is very important going into the state tournament. Now, competition is going to pick up this week as they host the Wayne Generals on the 21st. Wayne is an 11-8 ball club, and as you can expect, Wayne has some nice talented players on this team, and they play some pretty good defense for an SAC school. So this is definitely going to be a tough challenge for the Whitko Wildcats. And then they'll be on the road for the remainder of this week as they'll be traveling to Maconaquah on the 23rd and Northfield on the 25th. Maconaquah particularly will be a difficult matchup, the long trip down to Bunker Hill, Indiana, and they play some pretty good defense. They only give up 38 points per game, and while they've had their struggles at times scoring the basketball, they do have some nice wins on the season. Just looking on the top of the schedule here, they do have a decent win against Manchester here. They did beat Northfield, which is a team that Whitko will have to play later this week. And they did beat North Miami by 3 points. A solid North Miami team nonetheless. And then they got Northfield on the 25th to cap off this week. Northfield 10-7 on the season. They have won 4 of their last 5 games. Their lone loss coming to hands of North Miami, but they did have a win against Northwestern. They beat Lewis Cass, a team that won the conference last year with Whitko. And they also beat Southwood in that Wabash County tournament. So Northfield's definitely going to be a decent challenge for the Wildcats. But this week also will be the last week of TRC play for the Wichita Wildcats. So if they win these last 2 games, they will be outright TRC champions for the first time in program history, and they'll repeat as conference champions for the first time in program history as well. So Whitco can close out the TRC later this week. We shift over to the Northeast State, and going into that last week, all eyes were on that Belmont-Norwell matchup, and as you can see here, Belmont did take care of business against the Norwell Knights last night by the score of 47-44. Despite trailing at halftime by about 2 scores in the first half, they were able to pitch a strong second half, and Norwell was unable to get the shot off, and they were unable to get a 3-point shot to go off in the last seconds of the game. Belmont held on to beat the Knights 47-44 at the TP. And so the Belmont Braves are 1 win away of clinching a share of the Northeast State. And all Belmont has to do is win out, and they will win the NE8 for the first time since 2019. And so Braves come in 16-2. Their other loss came just a couple days earlier, back on the 14th, a 61-57 loss at the hands of Northrop. Despite Emily Blakey's best efforts with her 21 points, was not enough against a talented Northrop team led by Katie Jackson, a 14-win Northrop team that, since losing 3 in a row, they have now responded with wins in their last 5 games. So another quality loss for the Belmont Braves as they look to get to wrap up the NE8, and get prepared for sectional play. Columbia City had a pretty big week this past week. They defeated Wawasee 54-24, where Addison Baxter became the program's all-time leading scorer in the history of Columbia City. She did surpass Connie Klein-Myers in that game against Wawasee, and off a feed from Anissa Taco. I believe it was in the 3rd quarter of that game, and that's how Columbia City made some history with Addie Baxter getting that mark. And then against Huntington North last night, technically would be Saturday night, so technically wouldn't be last night, but Addie Baxter surpassed Bill Schwartz for 2nd on the school's overall career scoring list. And keep in mind, Baxter also is the program's career assist leader. So Addie Baxter still has a lot of accomplishments to go with her career. Columbia City still has pursuits of winning a sectional championship at the very least. And Baxter also is the NE8's all-time leading scorer. And like as mentioned earlier, Columbia City seeking their first sectional championship since the year 2000. I promise you, these fans are getting tired of me saying this, but until they win a sectional championship, that this endless narrative is going to continue. So they know these fans are getting tired of the sectional droughts. They got 3 more games left for the sectional tournament. They only have 1 game this week. It's at DeKalb on the 24th. They'll be at Northup on the 28th, and then they'll conclude the regular season on the 31st at home against the New Haven Bulldogs. Let's see. DeKalb comes in 3-2 in conference play, 13-5 overall. They did pick up some big wins this past week against New Haven, 69-20 on the 15th of January, 66-44 back on the 16th of January, and then just a couple nights ago against East Snowball on the road, Ashley Kotz had 31 points and 5 threes. I believe that is a season high for her as DeKalb defeated East Snowball 69-61 as the Barons jumped to 3rd place in conference play in the final couple weeks left in the season. DeKalb has Columbia City this week, but before that, they got a game on the 21st at Bluffton. And I know Isabella Stout of Bluffton mentioned this game in our interview, which you'll see later on the podcast. That's going to be an interesting NE8 ACAC clash on Tuesday nights. And then they'll have 2 more games next week at Snyder on the 28th, and they'll conclude the regular season on the 31st at home against Huntington North. And then Huntington North 12-7, 3-2 in conference play. They lost to Columbia City on Saturday, 59-46 at Columbia City after defeating Wayne 71-44 at Wayne. 3 more games on the season for Huntington North before sectional play. They'll host Belmont on the 24th, and then Cathedral the next night. And then on the 31st, at the Calves to conclude the regular season. Keep in mind that the sectional draws will take place the following Sunday, which next Sunday would be, that would be January the 26th. So keep that in mind that sectional draws are coming very, very close. And then Norwell comes at 12-6. Nice win against Dwayne on the 15, 51-40. And then lost to Belmont 47-44 at Belmont. 4 more games to go in the season for Norwell. 3 of them are coming to home. They are hosting Jay County on the 21st. New Haven on the 24th. They'll have their senior night on the 27th against Leo, which I believe they'll also honor 50 years of Norwell girls basketball and the IHSAA St. Jean girls basketball on that night as well, before traveling to East Snowball on the 31st to conclude the regular season. And that's how girls basketball looks. We shift over into the conference tournaments. We begin with girls basketball, obviously, but ACAC took place this past week, and as you can see on the picture taken by Ryan Walker of the Bluffton News Banner and contributor Burn Witness Media, the Bluffton Lady Tigers do sweep the ACAC with their first ever ACAC Girls Basketball Tournament Championship in dominant fashion, nonetheless, for the Bluffton Tigers, as they, after the matchup against Woodlan last Tuesday, which they defeated 67-52, they won their final 2 games, and they won those 2 games by no fewer than 47 points. It was 71-24 against Jay County on the 17th, and then they won by 53 points against Southern Wells, 84-31, which, according to my records, the ACAC sets a new record for the largest margin of victory, as well as the most points ever scored in a tournament championship game, as the Bluffton Tigers win their first ever ACAC Girls Basketball Tournament Championship, on top of winning the first ever ACAC regular season championship. So it's the first ever sweep of the ACAC. Coley Dick had a nice performance in this conference tournament. She scored 31 points in those first 2 games of the conference tournament, which is huge for a freshman coming off the bench, playing a high stakes competition like the ACAC tournament is in their 51st year. Isabella Stout was consistent the whole way through. She scored 20 points at least, 23 points at least, as a matter of fact, in 2 of these 3 games, including 26 points in the final game against Southern Wells. Really, it was just a dominant performance the whole way through. I think the only game we had a little bit of concern coming in was that Woodlan game, just because of the height of Woodlan. Alyssa Anderson being a threat inside. We know Brooke Kniebuller can make some shots, and Woodlan plays some pretty tough defense, particularly with their zone. And so it was obviously going to be a difficult matchup if the Bluffton Tigers came off sluggish in that game. But nonetheless, Bluffton played great basketball. They win the ACAC. So now we look at the Bluffton Tigers. They have 4 games left on their season. They're going to be hosting the Cal on the 21st, at Eastbrook on the 23rd. They'll host Heritage on the 25th, which is still a conference game, although it's not going to affect the ACAC race, or at least the ACAC championship, because Bluffton won the tiebreaker in all counts. So Bluffton wins the conference, and then they're at Manchester on 28th before they host a pretty difficult sectional that has Whitco, Woodland, and then reigning state champion Bishop Lures. And then we go ahead and take a look at the other ACAC champion, which is the Woodland Warriors. I guess some people might be just a little surprised, but I think Woodland had a talented team, and I think they just didn't quite show it in the season. But the Woodland Warriors do win their first conference tournament since 2020, as they defeated the Heritage Patriots by the score of 48-34. And I think when you look at the Woodland Warriors conference road, they start off with a matchup against Bluffton. That's a matchup where if Woodland doesn't make some shots, if someone doesn't step up, maybe that's a game where Bluffton can pull off an upset. Maybe Bluffton makes some shots. Maybe it's a different ball game. But Woodland played tremendous defense. They rebounded the ball extremely well against the Bluffton Tigers. And obviously Woodland got some timely scoring. Mason Moore had a nice game against the Bluffton Tigers as Woodland advanced to the second round. And they would dominate the semifinal matchup against Jay County, a pretty solid Jay County team that did defeat Adams Central on this last Saturday before the conference tournament began, 62 2-49, and they beat them by 21 points, 60-39. Trey Yoder did have 33 points in that game, which mattered a lot in that matchup against the Jay County Patriots. But when you have a team as talented as Woodlan does, with Trey Yoder being the Mr. Do-It-All for the Woodland Warriors, you have Oliver Adams being the big post player that he is, and he's strong and poised around the rim. Mason Moore can hit some shots. You got Halsey can hit some shots. Drew Fleet can do a little bit of everything around the basket as well. Keen Delagrange can hit some shots as well. You got a team that's got some pretty good talent, some depth on this team. You can see why Woodland had some success in the conference tournament, and part of the reason I said don't underestimate the Woodland Warriors was just they had a lot of talent, didn't quite show it in the regular season. I think you saw that in the conference tournament when they could put multiple games of consistent basketball together. Woodland can be a pretty good team. And last night, they put up maybe their best defensive effort of the season at a 48-34 victory. It's a good team that did defeat Adams Central 53-45, and it was the play of Oliver Adams that did the magic for the Woodland Warriors. 19 points, 9 of 9 shooting for the Woodland Warriors as they used their size and physicality to frustrate the guard-heavy Heritage Patriots. As Woodland wins their first conference tournament since 2020, they're 14th in the history of the Woodland Warriors boys basketball program as the 102nd ACAC tournament comes to an end. We shift over to the NECC. We take a look at the NECC girls basketball tournament. The Eastside Blazers, they repeat as conference tournament champions for the first time in the history of the program as Eastside dominated the first two games over Eastside and Angola. They did beat Central by 15 points. 55-40. And then the championship game, kind of an interesting game against Fairfield. They were up 16-5 at the end of the first quarter. Did not score another point in the first half as Fairfield pitched a shutout in the second quarter, 13-0. So they were trailing 18-16 at the half. In the third quarter, they were down as many as 8 points in the third quarter. Around 2 minutes into the third quarter, they were down 23-16. You're thinking, oh no, the Fairfield Falcons, they got this game in the bag. And then Eastside said, no, it ain't happening. And Eastside outscored Fairfield 29-8 the rest of the way. Taylor Mack had 12 points coming up after scoring 15 against Central Noble. And the Eastside Blazers repeat as NECC tournament champions for the very first time ever for this program. Even going back to the ACAC days in the late 70s, Eastside never repeated as conference tournament champions either. So the Blazers now have an opportunity to get the job done in the NECC. They have not won the regular season for the Northeast Corner Conference since 1992. 1992. Keep in mind, they have never won the conference and the conference regular season championship in the same season. They have an opportunity at 20-1 to take care of business this week. They're at West Noble on the 21st. And then on the 24th, they are at Central Noble. If they can get 2 wins this week, right? If they win both games this week, the Eastside Blazers will clinch at least a share of the NECC. And if they have one more game after that next week, which will be against Westview on the 30th in Butler, they can win, they can sweep out the remainder of those 3 games. The Eastside Lady Blazers will clinch an outright NECC championship, thus sweeping the NECC altogether, and thus making more history for this very successful Eastside program as they prepare for a difficult sectional, a all NECC sweepstakes, to which Central Noble, we talked about them earlier. We talked about it just moments ago about Central Noble. I mentioned that in my interview with Lily Kreischer, which you'll see later on the show. Central Noble will be a big part of Eastside's journey in the state tournament, and they will be a major obstacle for the Eastside Blazers going into the state tournament. No question about that. And then lastly, we want to take a look at the Westview Warriors. And perhaps the most impressive thing about Westview was just how dominant was that tournament for the Westview Warriors. They came to this tournament with maybe some question marks, not the best performance against East Noble, lost to Lakeland, nearly let the Angola game get away from them. They go in this conference tournament, and they just flat out dominate the tournament. They beat all three games. They won all three games by no less than 19 points. Just dominance from the Westview Warriors, 63-42 at Prairie Heights, 52-33 against Busco, and then the most lopsided victory in a championship game in the history of the NECC Boys Tournament by the score of 73-38. Austin Slayball with 22 points. You will see my interview with Austin Slayball later on in the show as we discuss the Westview Warriors winning their 16th conference tournament championship, which is a record for the NECC tournament. Let's see here. I want to make sure I don't forget anything here. So now let's go ahead and just recap the boys as a whole. One thing I do want to mention here for the NECC for Westview, as I mentioned Westview just moments ago here. So let me make sure I get to the right spot here. So Westview has a couple of games this week. They're at Leo on the 21st. That's going to be a very intriguing non-conference matchup leading up to a big doubleheader against Fairfield on the 24th. Girls will start at 6, boys to follow. And that boys game against Fairfield will definitely play a big factor on where things go from there for the Westview Warriors. All right, there we go. So now we go to the Hoosier Plains Conference. And you take a look at the boys' side for the Hoosier Plains. Bethany Christian currently sitting undefeated in the conference. They are in first place, 3-0 conference play, 7-7 overall, as they will have 2 games coming up this week. They are hosting Prairie Heights on the 21st, and then they are going to be traveling to Hamilton on the 25th. It's a big win for Bethany on the 25th, potentially, because if they can win that game against Hamilton, the Bethany Christian Bruins will clinch at least a share of the Hoosier Plains Conference, to which their next conference game won't be until February 21st at Trinity Greenlawn. So there's going to be a lot of time between this week and that February 21st matchup. A lot of non-conference games in between of that. And then Hamilton still winless in conference, 1-9 overall this year. They did have a pretty decent performance against South Bend Career Academy on the 18th, which is on a Saturday. 70-50 loss to South Bend Career Academy. They're at Eden, Ohio on the 21st, followed by a home matchup against Bethany Christian on the 25th. Taking a look at the Three Rivers Conference, as things stand right now, Manchester has remained in first place in the TRC. They have won their last 11 games, and they have been dominant so far this season for Gavin Bennett and the Manchester Squires. They are coming off a 47-point win against the Wabash Apaches, 65-18. They are going to be hosting Rochester on the 24th. They'll be at Adams Central on the 25th. That's going to be a bit nice non-conference matchup for both teams as they get ready for the final stretch of the regular season. Going down to where Whitco is, they're currently in the bottom half of the conference, 1-3 in conference play, 3-9 overall. The Whitco Wildcats did put up a decent performance against Lakewood Park on the 11th, but only played one game this past week and a loss to Southwood, 50-39. Scoring, again, has been an issue for Whitco, only scoring 44 points per game. But again, because they play tough defense and they do play hard, Whitco is staying in games as we speak here. They do have 2 games coming up this week. The 24th, they are hosting Northfield. Northfield is a 7-5 ball club. That's going to be a very tough challenge for the Whitco Wildcats. And then they're at Prairie Heights on the 25th. You look at that 3-9 record thing, Prairie Heights isn't very good, but I mean, you got Caston Day at Prairie Heights. You got Jake Stoy at Prairie Heights, Cade Batchelor. If he can beat Cade Batchelor, that's a tough 3-9 team for the Whitco Wildcats, who are not an offensive juggernaut either. So should be an intriguing matchup at Prairie Heights on Saturday. And then taking a look at the Northeast States as we wrap up our recap of basketball here. Entering this week, New Haven is in first place. They are 3-0 in conference play, 7-8 overall, as New Haven took care of business on Friday against the Leo Lions, 75-65 in the 111th annual meeting against the Leo Lions. Yes, they win the Yarn Bowl. So they win the Yarn Bowl series against the Leo Lions, 75-65. They did lose to Carroll the next night, 70-46, but that's not as significant as the fact that New Haven is undefeated in conference play. And New Haven will have a big matchup coming up on the 25th as a host The Norwell Knights, they'll have the game against Dwayner leading up to that on the 22nd. But that big matchup against Norwell on the 25th will be very intriguing. And I will tell you this. I will tell you that the New Haven Bulldogs definitely chopping their lips on that Norwell matchup. They knew that game was a winnable game last year. It kind of got away from them late. Norwell hit a 3 at the buzzer to beat the New Haven Bulldogs. Actually, it was a 3, and then got the foul. So actually, it was a 4-point play that allowed the Norwell Knights to defeat New Haven last year on the road. Heartbreaking fashion for New Haven last year. But nevertheless, the New Haven Bulldogs now have an opportunity to extend their conference undefeated streak to 4-0. Huntington North 2-0 conference play. They did pick up a walk-off win against Columbia City on Friday, 66-64, as Blaine Freiberger hit a pull-up jumper at the buzzer to defeat the Columbia City Eagles 66-64. They did lose the north side of the Nets night 77-65, but again, insignificant compared to the fact they are still undefeated in conference play, as they still have the East Snow game on the table because that game was postponed earlier because of the weather. It did get rescheduled to January 30th, so they will have that game played on the 30th of January. But before that, 2 games this week. They will be hosting Canterbury the 21st, traveling to Belmont on the 25th. Then they'll have that East Snowball game in Kindleville on January the 30th. And that, folks, is the talk around the corner. And so we will have 4 guests on the show today. All 4 of these guests come from the respective conference tournament champions. The ACAC tournament champions, I will speak with Isabella Stout of Bluffton, as well as Oliver Adams of Woodlan. For the NECC tournament champions, it will be Lily Kreischer of Eastside and Austin Schlabach of Westview. Enjoy. I'm here with the senior of the Bluffton Lady Tigers, Isabella Stout. And Isabel, welcome to the show. How are things going for you and for the now ACAC tournament champion Lady Tigers?
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, never would have thought we'd be here, but here we are.
Mm-hmm. If someone came to you and talked about the Bluffton Lady Tigers, what would be the one word to best describe this team and why?
Probably relentless. Saying that we play like to our best ability for 32 minutes a game, and that's always like one of the key words we use before every game, every practice.
Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, you finished up the tournament as the conference tournament MVP for obvious reasons, statistically speaking. But when you look at this team as a whole, this isn't just you and everybody else. This is a very much a collective team effort with you at the wing position, Conley all of the combo guard position. You got seniors playing a variety of different roles. Marin Schreiber playing at the center slot, and then Chloe Dick coming off the bench as a freshman, playing some meaningful minutes and whatnot. Describe the camaraderie with this group of players and why this team has been able to find so much success this year at 17-2.
I would say, I mean, we have 5 seniors, and we've been playing together since our freshman year, and then Conley, which we've been playing since our sophomore year together. And I don't know, we just had like a good like combination, able to bond together, and it really helps that Chloe has came in as a freshman and has really like helped us pick up the pace too as well.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the familiarity with the players, and at Bluffton High School, it's a very small school, so obviously you're playing multiple sports at Bluffton, and so the
Yeah,
familiarity for playing multiple years certainly helps with the chemistry, and just be able to the chemistry part of it is a huge part of having successful championship teams.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So Isabel, when going through the ACAC tournament, obviously you took care of the conference regular season championship for the very first time. ACAC tournament comes along. Woodland was your first round matchup, and obviously that was a matchup that we were very concerned about going in because of how difficult Woodland is to score on with Alyssa Anderson inside. And they got some nice guards on that team, and this was kind of a good first test for your team to see what your team can do for that week. Talk about what that Woodland game to allow your team to be able to find the success the rest of the week.
So we played Woodlan like the first time during regular season. And obviously that was a game we were worried about, especially with Alyssa Anderson and Brooke Knubler. Those were our two girls we were really concerned about, like discussing where they are at the floor in all times. And then we beat them, which obviously amazing. And then we played them again in the ACAC tournament first round. And we're like, okay, like way to start off with like, one of the better teams in the ACAC. And we just like every practice we planned like what to do in this scenario and then this scenario, and then we decided to take it out to the floor and execute it. We didn't do great, but we still got the win. So
And your conference tournament champion, so that matters either way. And then Chloe Dick comes off the bench. She had an immediate impact, her first ever conference tournament game, and that's a lot of pressure for a freshman to come in and
yes.
be able to contribute right away against this Woodland team. And then defensively, you held Alyssa Anderson well below her season average. I think she averaged 16.5 points per game. I don't think she even got to that number in that match against your team, which is a testament of your tough-nosed defense and whatnot. When you look back at the ACAC tournament, you look back at what happened this past week, winning the ACAC regular season championship for the first time ever, winning the conference tournament, doing so in a record-setting fashion, the most points ever scored by a victorious team in the championship game ever for the ACAC tournament. So to sweep the ACAC altogether, this program has been around since 1973, just about 2 years before the IHSAA sanctioned girls basketball. Bluffton has never won a conference championship of any kind going into this year. Not even the 98 team did this. So this tells you this is a very significant moment for this program. What does it mean for you to become one of the first players to ever win a conference championship for Bluffton girls basketball?
I mean, it's absolutely insane to think about. I mean, like considering my freshman year, even up to like last year, we've always been like, okay, a decent team, but everyone in the conference was always just so much better and so much more skilled. And then last year is when we kind of realized like, okay, like we got this, we could be a pretty decent team. And then this year, I think Chloe really helped us like kind of get that extra like push to finally become like one of the best teams we could be.
Mm-hmm. You've also been you've been coached by Doug Curtis the past couple years now, and as you know, Doug Curtis does have a resume when it comes to coaching. He's coached all over
Yes.
Northeast Indiana, and it's been instant success across the way. I've talked to Doug Curtis in the past. Obviously, he's shown a lot of great things in these 2 years. What has your experience been like with Doug Curtis being your coach?
It has been so astronomically different from coaches in previous years. He has like for myself, he has brought out so much more in me than I have ever had. Like my freshman year to now, you wouldn't even recognize me as a player just because of like it's just he's such a positive, like impacting coach. He knows what he's talking about. He always has like he knows what to do in different like situations with different players, and that really helps us as a team.
And it certainly has helped the defensive part of the game where at
Yes.
times maybe Bluffton didn't quite fully show its potential in the past, but the past 2 years you're seeing the most potential on defense, and then finally gained some offense this year, be able to get that perimeter offense to go where it maybe wasn't the case last year and whatnot. So you talked about you being a different player now compared to your freshman year. Obviously, statistically, we have seen a steady growth from your game all around, especially this year, averaging around 20.5 points per game, leading the ACAC in scoring. Isabella, if you will look back in your career, what advice would you give to a young girl coming up playing basketball or playing other sports based upon your experience?
My biggest thing is confidence. I struggled with that forever and ever. And then finally, he came along. He really helped me build it up. But like my freshman year, I'm telling you, it was terrible. I didn't want to shoot the ball. I didn't even want to hold the ball. I didn't want any part of it. I would just freak out. So I would say definitely just have confidence and play to your best ability. I mean, it's not embarrassing if you airball a shot, if you turn it over, it's really not. You just have to have confidence to keep your head up and honestly don't get down on yourself. Cheer each other on because it really helps you in the long run.
Very good advice. I think we can all say that for anything in life, not just basketball or sports, but anything in life we can do. Confidence is always a big thing for all of us. But for those that are just tuning in, this is Isabella Stout of the Bluffton Tigers as they are coming down to the final 2 weeks of the regular season before a very tough sectional coming up where you have Woodlan once again in that sectional, Whitco, a high-scoring Whitco team in that sectional, and then you got good old Bishop Lures, defending state champions in that sectional once again. I don't want to look too far ahead sectional, so I think I'm going to ask this final question like this. What does this week look like now that you have the ACAC wrapped up?
I would say probably going to be a little more of an intense practices, just to say, like you said, our sectional is pretty challenging. And then with the DeKalb coming up on Tuesday, I think that'll give us like another good look to see like where we're at as a team, because they're a pretty decent team. And yeah, definitely just prepare for that sectional, see what to do, figure out different things, different teams, different scenarios.
Mm-hmm. That DeKalb will definitely be an interesting team, especially with a nice guard by the name of Ashley Kotz, a
Yes.
kid that can definitely score a lot of points. And she did that against East Snowball back on over the weekend with 31 points and I believe 5 triples in Kendallville. That's a team that you lost to earlier this year. So this is a DeKalb team you got to prepare for. But Isabella, any final words before we let you go?
No, I would say just be the best player you can be, show confidence, show your abilities, and yeah.
All right. This is Isabella Stout of the Bluffton Tigers as they get set to conclude the regular season and prepare for sectionals. Isabella, thank you for taking time to talk about yourself and for the Bluffton Tigers, and congratulations on winning the ACAC championships.
Thank you.
I'm here with the senior out of Eastside High School, Lily Kreischer, who's now a part of the 2-time NECC girls basketball tournament champions. How does that sound for you?
It's really cool. I'm glad to be just another part of our team's history that we've made so far.
Another part of an excellent season for your Eastside Lady Blazers, 20-1 going into this week. Probably one of the most successful seasons in the history of this program. Lily, as entering the season, I know Coach Lordy talked to me about this earlier this year about what this team could do and how much potential this team had. What made about this year that you and your team thought this could be a special year?
It's been what we've always wanted. We've worked together since 3rd grade, just improving and trying to get better. And we knew we could go far when we were little. Everyone always told us that. And this year we knew it was going to be our year.
Mm-hmm. And we've seen that so far with that 14-0 start, the longest unbeaten streak in the history of the program. And honestly, if it wasn't for a couple of bounces going the other way for Belmont, you're talking about an undefeated season up to this point. But that's here and there. Looking at the NECC tournament, you drew West Snowball in the first round, dominated the Chargers there, took care of business against Angola, a pretty scrappy, solid Angola team. And then you beat Central Noble, a team that obviously we'll talk more about later on in the interview. But Fairfield, this is the team you played the week prior. You were down big early in that game against Fairfield. You made a big comeback in the second quarter, and you held on to win by 9 points. You start off big in that first quarter in the championship game against Fairfield, 11 points. You don't score a single point in the second quarter, and you're down as many as 8 points in the third quarter. Where did that change from being down 23-16 to go on this 29-8 run to win this game?
Well, we really saw what we needed to improve on. Our coaches did a great job of pinpointing where we needed to improve, and it was just up to our coachability and seeing how we were going to take that adversity and fixing it there.
Was this more of potentially nerves, or was this more of like Fairfield made some adjustments that maybe it just caught you off guard a little bit, or was it just simple as just minor things?
I think we got comfortable. I think we got that lead, then got a little bit too comfortable and we made some lazy passes, took some shots that weren't really us, and let go of our defense a little bit. And we just needed a little push to help us fix that. And once we did, it got a lot better.
It seemed that we've seen that change in the third quarter where you started to take less of those rush shots and you started to take the shots you normally would take. And then your defense was huge in the second half, forcing 30 turnovers in the game, 20 in the second half by itself. Is that just the motto of this team, is just winning it at whatever it takes and then winning in that type of East Side gritty toughness?
Yeah, that's what we like to do. We like to force turnovers. I think we're just scrappy like that. That's what we've always done from the time we were little. I think teams are averaging 25, 30 turnovers against us, which is great for us. We thrive in transition.
Mm-hmm. And that's basically half of your offense. It's just off of just turnovers and fast break opportunities. But I want to talk more specifically about this team, because this team is more than just the statistics. You've got a nice mix of seniors. You're one of those seniors. Sydney Kessler is another senior who's committed to Indiana Tech. You got some juniors and sophomores on this team, like Taylor Mack, who was big against Fairfield in that championship game. You got Lucy Kitchen with some moments there. And then Paige Tratzler is a senior who's been there for at least 3 years as a varsity regular contributor. Sydney Kessler, another regular contributor. Talk about what this group has brought to this team and how much these players have meant to you as teammates.
Okay, well, I think to start, it's pretty easy to say we're all very athletic. We work hard in the weight room. We run often. And aside of us being athletic, we work hard, and we know who our shooters are. We know who our drivers are. Putting that together, it's a lot of, we're a very versatile team, and anyone can do anything, and that makes us really tough to defeat.
Mm-hmm. And then you're also a cohesive group too. Like, every single player comes in this floor and they know exactly what they're going to do. How much has the impact of Mike Lordy brought to this team? He just picked up his 100th win during the conference tournament. How much has his presence been known for this program?
Him and all of the coaching staff, they do a great job of knowing where each individual player can help and really telling us what we need to do, where we need to do it. They tell us our jobs. They tell us, you need to do this on defense. You need to do this on offense. They tell us how to work as a team, and they're very encouraging in doing so.
Mm-hmm. Now, Lily, you are a part of a nice family of athletes coming through Eastside, and athletes that have won state championships in softball and success in other sports, in basketball, cross country, track and field, and whatnot. How much has your family been a huge part of your success as an academic student, but also as an athlete as well?
My family's always been there to push me. I have 4 sisters, so for the 5 of us, we always say that we have enough for a basketball team. So we spend a lot of time in the summers out in the driveway playing basketball, racing around against each other, just not only making each other better, but really encouraging each other and pushing each other.
So I'm going to take a very good guess that that's how you were raised, is that you had your sisters competing against you, and that's how you had that competitive drive in the first place.
Yeah. And it's not just in sports. We do 4-H too, which also is a big part of why we're so competitive.
Well, there's research about sports and life having some correlation in terms of competitive spirit and having that determination and whatnot. So I guess that makes a lot of sense there. As you look ahead to this week, and obviously nothing's done yet, as you know from last year and many years before that, nothing's done after the NECC tournament. You got a very busy week this week. You got West Noble again on Tuesday, but then you get Central Noble again on Friday in Albion. Depending on what happens on Tuesday for CN and Fairfield, you might have 2 undefeated teams coming up on Friday in Albion, Indiana. Obviously, we know what happened last year. You beat them twice in the regular season in the conference tournament. They broke your hearts in the sectional. What are your thoughts going in that matchup with this scrappy, tough Central Noble team that's going to play physical basketball?
Well, I think we tend to get comfortable sometimes, and seeing last year we beat them twice and then lost, and that was tough. We took it personally. We've actually had their newspaper hanging up in our locker room since day one. So that's just been a drive to get things done against them, and we need to make sure that we're not comfortable and just bring the energy and intensity like we would any other team.
Yeah, this is Lily Kreischer, the Eastside Lady Blazers, as they hope to get things wrapped up in the NECC. As I mentioned this before, the Eastside has never won the conference and the conference tournament in the same season in the history of this program, even going back to before the NECC. So this is a historic moment potentially in the works again for this program. Lily, final question for me. You also have a sectional coming up in a couple of weeks. I don't want to talk too much about that, but basically I call it the All NEC Sweepstakes, which, by the way, Central Noble also included in that sectional. That's here and there. But the point is you got a busy couple of weeks coming up as Eastside looks to win their first sectional in a couple of years. As you prepare for the state tournament, how has Coach Lordy been up to this point of making sure you keep things within the focus of each game, but also being ready for the playoffs? And I know you've seen this by this point, playing the Lights of Belmont, playing the conference tournament, playing Fairfield. What's it going to take to continue that drive as you prepare for a difficult road ahead in the playoffs?
We just need to take it one day at a time, whether it's practice, whether it's a game, whatever it is, staying focused and staying fueled for everything that's coming ahead.
Mm-hmm. Also, I take that back. One more question. What is it like to be a Lady Blazer, and how do you want to be remembered for being a Lady Blazer? How do you want other kids to look at you as a role model?
Being a Blazer has been one of the best things that's ever happened to me. I love the community, and I just hope that this team leaves a legacy that hopefully one day will be broken. But I mean, obviously, I hope it stays for a very long time.
All right. That's a good way to put a bow on this. And Lily, thank you for taking the time to talk about your team, your luck this week. Big week up ahead for your team as you look to get things concluded with your conference race.
Thank you.
I am here with the talented senior out of Woodlan High School, Oliver Adams. Oliver, how are things going for you and for the now ACAC tournament champions, the Woodlan Warriors?
It's going really good. Had a lot of fun last night, being able to win and be a champion.
Yeah. You had a nice game yourself, 18 points, 9 of 9 shooting. Obviously, when we talked about Woodlan, everybody talks about Trey Yoder on this Woodlan team. But Oliver, you've kind of taken off this year. Talk about how much you've grown over the past couple years, and how what is it like playing alongside Trey Yoder?
It's really fun to play with him, and it's been fun to progress from last year. When he was actually sick, and I got to play in and got a chance to step up in the Lakewood Park Christian game, had a really good game, just continued from there.
Mm-hmm. Talk about the ACAC tournament. Obviously, you drew Bluffton in the first round. That's a team you played just a couple nights prior where you won by about 15 points in that contest. And it was kind of one of those, when you play a team like Bluffton and Tego Ball, they play a different style of basketball compared to a team like Woodland would normally play. And obviously, it was kind of a balanced scoring performance. I think Mason Moore might have led that game in scoring and whatnot. Talk about how it felt to get out of that first game against a team like Bluffton that kind of could throw a curveball matchup in the conference tournament.
Yeah, it was great. We played really good defense. Trey had good defense. Holding Kreischer like 4 points. Halsey and Jackaway played great defense, stopping their guy from scoring. Drew had some good rebounds, help us get back onto offense, and
Mm-hmm. And then you had a nice performance against Jay County, and mainly with Trey Yoder scoring 33 points, which your team defeated Jay County by 21 points. That's a team that defeated Adams Central on the Saturday prior to the conference tournament. So it sets you up nicely for that championship game against Heritage and South Adams. Really, for you, this was really your first real experience of playing in this historic conference tournament, the 102nd ACAC tournament. And on a night where Heritage, they're not a big team per se, so they're very guard heavy. They're gonna play man defense. So they were really playing tough defense on Trey Yoder, and you stepped up big time against Heritage. What was that experience like playing in a championship atmosphere and playing in a game where it had a lot of stakes for your team and playing at your district rival?
It was great to go out there and play against them, and knowing them for most of my life, have that rivalry there. And we had to play great defense, stuck together when we were getting down a little bit and the lead was getting closer. And we just stepped through and kept scoring and stopped them from scoring.
Mm-hmm. I want to speak to you on behalf of you and your hard work as a player. And then you have a nice family history with Woodlan basketball. Your mom is a Purdue Fort Wayne Hall of Famer playing volleyball and basketball. Obviously, your dad has had some nice athleticism in his career. I think it's your great-grandfather played on the 1941 ACAC champions of Woodburn High School. How does it feel to be a part of that member of the Adams family, per se, and being part of this rich history of the ACAC tournament?
It feels great to add myself to the list with them and should improve that I'm just as good as they were.
Mm-hmm. Talk about your teammates. There's a lot of seniors on this Woodlan team. It's a team that came up just short last year. You talked briefly about some of the guys like Trey Yoder and Mason Moore and whatnot. You also have a couple underclassmen like Keen Delagrange, who's had some moments on the season. You got Drew Fleet, a nice football player at Woodlan, 4-sport athlete at Woodlan. Talk about what it's like to be a part of this team, be a part of these guys. That you're suddenly seeing a team starting to build some confidence as you progress through the season.
I mean, we've always been together. We hang out like all the time, and we have really great team chemistry. We're always there for each other. Always want the best for each other, and just love going out and playing with them.
Mm-hmm. And in a moment like this where you're looking at the team and they've been going through some ups and downs this year, it's good to have that team chemistry and knowing when to feel good about yourself, when to understand that how to deal with pressure and how to feel good about life a little bit. So how does it feel to have some of these seniors be able to lift you up in times of wins and in times of defeats and help you learn across a long season? 4 months is a long time playing a sport like basketball.
Yeah, I just love when they're always there helping me, keeping me up, making sure I'm doing the right thing. I'm always there helping them.
Mm-hmm. So coming up this week, obviously you've been paying attention to the ACAC race. It's kind of I guess you'd call it a wild west, if you would, of the ACAC race. And with the tiebreaker rule in place, you never know what could happen in the wild west of the ACAC. And guess what? On Friday, you're going to be playing Heritage again. It's going to feel like a football schedule. So you're going to be preparing for this Heritage team this entire week. What's your thoughts now going into that matchup on Friday, going to Heritage, playing against the team you've already played last night, and now you're playing for the conference regular season championship?
Yeah, we just probably step up, keep our good defense, watch some film, see what they do, keep getting better, see what we did wrong on offense and defense, and find a way to do better and beat them again.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, you're going to have to slow down the quick guards of Landon Leibarter and Tyrion Brown and Bates. I can go on and on. It's a really athletic Heritage team. Then hold them to 34 points in the championship game really is a testament of your team's improvement on defense, and then obviously your performance in the inside as the bait for this Woodlan team. Final question from me, Oliver, and again, this is more personal to you and whatnot. What are your thoughts as you get ready to conclude your senior year at Woodlan? What are some things you enjoy the most about being part of this basketball team? And do you have any shout outs and people you want to thank throughout this journey?
I'd like to thank all the people and fans and families, my family, all coming to the games to support me and our team. And coaches for coaching us and helping us find a way to win.
Mm-hmm. And definitely your family. I mean, your family is a big part of who you are. So, yeah. So, Oliver, thank you for taking the time to talk about the Woodlan Warriors. Good luck as you got a big matchup on Friday against the Heritage Patriots, a matchup we will talk about at NECC Sports.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I am here with the talented sophomore guard of the Westview Warriors, Austin Schlabach. Austin, how are things going for you on this Sunday night as you are now a part of the 16th NECC Tournament Championship at Westview?
It's going great. I feel great about it. We came into that game just playing way better than we have been the past couple of weeks. Our energy's been up, so just confident going into the next game.
Mm-hmm. And that's what some of the Westview folks have been saying. Like the energy and the intensity of this Westview team definitely stepped it up in this conference tournament. Not to say the Westview doesn't play hard usually. That's not the case here. But the point is that this is the best week maybe your team has played maybe since the beginning of the year, if not the entire season as a whole.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. So going in the conference tournament, what was the coaching staff emphasizing preparing for the conference tournament, especially when you had an extra day to prepare for the NEC tournament when you took on Prairie Heights?
Really the main thing was just our energy, our talk, and being closer together as a team and being more unselfish, passing the ball, reversing the ball more, getting around the arc faster, and getting more paint touches, which is really what we worked on, and we kind of executed that in the tournament.
Mm-hmm. And the execution paid off in the conference tournament where you've won every game by at least 20 points or something like that. And then Owen Brill had a tremendous tournament where he set career highs in the Prairie Heights game. He had 18 points and he had 17 in the championship game against Garrett. Can you speak on behalf of what Owen Brill and what the senior leadership has brought to this Westview team? Because this is a very young team nonetheless.
Yeah, I love playing with Owen. He's always talking. He's always helping me get out of my own head when I feel down on myself or something like that. And he just started shooting the ball, so I trust him, trust passing it to him. I feel like it's going in every time I give it to him.
Mm-hmm. So you opened the conference tournament at Prairie Heights. You won 63-42. Went to Fairfield for the semifinals against Busco. That was a game you took care of by nearly 20 points there, 52-33. The championship game was against a red-hot Garrett team that only lost 2 games going into this conference tournament. They just took care of Central Noble the night prior, 47-42. And this was a close game in the first quarter, about 6 lead changes in that first quarter, but your team pulled away after that and shot about 62% from the floor. Obviously, you eventually took off in that game, scoring 22 points. Obviously, you got Isaiah Keenan checked and got into foul trouble, but what was the big key to how your team was able to pull away against a very talented and tough Garrett team?
The thing we really emphasize is they had 3 really small guards that they played all at the same time, actually. So we were just trying to move the ball until we get the ball into the paint. And so they had to help off of their man to come, help the smaller guards. And then we just either got to lay up or we got to kick out 3, which is we shot it well. So that worked out for us.
Yeah, and then you also held Carter Kaufman below his season average. I think he came in the tournament at one point averaging 23 points per game in the tournament, held him to well below that, around 9 points in the championship game. So obviously your defense also played a role as well. What is it like playing for Chandler Pribble? This is only your sophomore year, but you can sense that there's an impact that he's brought to this team.
I really like it. People go in slumps. He helps you get out of it. I feel like he's great. Even outside of basketball, you just feel like you're a friend with him. You can talk to him when you need to, and he's a great guy to be around.
Mm-hmm. Austin, you obviously had a role with this team last year as a freshman, but you are certainly seeing a different player this year as a sophomore. How much do you put credit to your work, and then how much credit do you put to the coaches and the people around you to set you up for success this year?
I think it's kind of like 50-50 because, obviously you got to put in work over the off season, and then that doesn't really matter if you don't have a good coaching staff to help the team come together and play together and have success.
Mm-hmm. So what's it like with this team? This is again, as I mentioned earlier, this is a very young team. You're a team that is going to have at least 2 or 3 years of starting experience going into next year and whatnot. And you got a lot of guys in your class on this team. You got a lot of guys with experience that are older than you on this team. What's it like gelling with this group of Westview Warriors?
I really like it. It's like last year I was very young playing up with the older dudes, so it was just you looked up to them, so you had a great time just like being around them. And this year you feel like they're older too, but you're like really, really good friends with them. So it's like you just play together even more naturally, and you just they help you out with everything.
What does that journey to basketball look like to you? How long have you been playing basketball, and how much does the sport resonate with you?
I've started playing basketball at the end of the 8th grade year. Well, like really taking it seriously. That's when I started working out almost every day. But when I first started, it was around 6th grade, so not like crazy long.
Interesting. This is quite fascinating that you're telling me this, and we're seeing more of these players saying, I didn't really get to really take basketball that serious or take this sport that serious to middle school. So this is fascinating that you're telling me this right now. Now let's shift over to the team and let's talk about this week. Obviously, you have something else to play for in the conference, as you are still chasing Lakeland for the conference championship. You're going to Leo on Tuesday, and that's a team with a lot of athleticism and some good-sized players, and you got a former Fairfield coach in Derek Heinen taking over this story-rich Leo program. What does a team like Leo do to help you prepare for the big matchup against Fairfield on Friday?
I mean, it's really going to help us because Leo's really, really good. We lost their coach 2 times last year, so we don't want to do that again. And I feel like their strength, their height, their athleticism, everything's just going to help us prepare for our game Friday against Fairfield.
Mm-hmm. This is Austin Slayball, the sophomore guard of the Westview Warriors, who actually leads the conference in scoring at 16.3 points per game, according to my calculations, entering this week. But that's here and there. Final question for me, Austin. We just talked about the Fairfield game coming up on Friday. This is the big rivalry in the Northeast Corner Conference. Regardless of how good these teams are, it's always Fairfield, Westview. Big matchup on your calendar every year as you prepare for Leo first and foremost, and then later on preparing for Fairfield. What's the emphasis going to be going into this week, and how's the coach going to plan things out with the Leo matchup, and then playing against a Fairfield team that plays some tough defense, and they got some tough dudes that can shoot the basketball?
Yeah, I'm not sure. We haven't really talked about our game plan against Leo yet. We probably will Monday, but it most likely will be just the same thing, emphasizing our energy and talk, which is really going to carry us through every game. Talk and energy is just, if you ever make a mistake, then it's going to help you fix that.
Mm-hmm. I lied. There is one more question for me. So as we talked, as we put a book on the NECC tournament, how does it feel? Sophomore year, NECC tournament championship. How much does that satisfy you? How much does it make you want more of that championship experience?
I mean, it really made me happy. I was happy with it, but I still got 2 more years, so I can't just take it lightly. I'm trying to get 2 more of those if I can, but it really motivates me more just to get that feeling again.
Clever answer. I like that. Final thoughts before we let you go, Austin.
Yep. I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think we're
all right. I think that's fair enough. All right, Austin, thank you for taking the time to talk about your Westview Warriors and yourself. Good luck this week because you got a difficult week coming up against the Leo Lions and the Fairfield Falcons.
Thank you.
Well, that's going to do it for the talk around the corner. And it was a busy one nonetheless because of the fact we had the conference tournaments in basketball, girls wrestling with the state finals. So a lot to unpack this past week. And hopefully we get an opportunity to talk to some of these wrestlers as we cap off the girls wrestling season. But tune in next week for another episode of the NEC Sports Podcast as we get closer and closer to the end of the winter season and closer to the state tournaments for the winter sports season. So for my name is Sam Frick. So long and enjoy your Martin Luther King Day.
Thank you for watching the NEC Sports Podcast. Please like this video and like the page NEC Sports on YouTube. Let people know that the NEC Sports is on YouTube. Also like our Facebook page at Around the Northeast Corner and follow either Around the Northeast Corner and Sam Frick on Twitter/X. We're also on Instagram as well. Just look for NEC Sports or Around the Northeast Corner and you will find us there. You can also follow the man himself, Sam Frick, the founder and editor at Around the Northeast Corner, for other additional content. This has been an Around the Northeast Corner presentation.